Let's compare native apps with mobile apps to find out if it makes sense to build a web app to begin with. Here's a number which might discourage you, but no worries, I'll say more about this number over the next seconds. If we have a look at the usage of our smartphone, here's a report by ComScore from 2015, made in the US. We see that the average smartphone user spends 87% of his time in native apps, whereas only 13% of the time go into the mobile web. So the user visiting a web page in the browser on the mobile phone. Now this is clearly discouraging because why would we build a mobile web app if a native app is so much better? Let's first of all find out why people spend so much time in native apps. One important factor are push notifications. They drive them back into the apps. You get a push notification, you tap on it, you're back into the app. Push notifications communicate with you even if the application is closed, even if the phone is tucked away into your pocket. Additionally, we have home screen icons which make it easy to start the app. You pull out your phone, you have some time to spare, just open one of the apps and that's it. This is how you use it, right? That's harder for web apps, web pages, of course. You can add them to the home screen, but it's not like you're prompting the user to do so. You don't have an app store where people would go and search for you. So getting on the home screen traditionally has been hard for web apps. It's a huge plus for native apps though. Additionally, we have access to native device features like the camera, geolocation, and other things. And of course, many native apps also work offline. At least a certain part of these apps works offline. These are all good reasons why people are using native apps. Now, as I already said, the cool thing about progressive web apps is that we can basically bring all these things into the web too. So maybe this can switch relations. That's not the only argument for the mobile web though. Even though today a lot of the people are using native apps, let's have a look at some arguments against native apps. One argument is that you of course have to learn two languages if you want to support iOS and Android, or you need multiple developers. Would be nicer if you could just write an application in the language you already know, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and so on. So if you could just use a web application. Now, the better argument is this number though. Even though the majority of users uses native apps, 80% of the time goes into the top 3 apps, which unfortunately probably isn't your app. It's most likely Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, something like that. So there's only very little time to spare for other apps. And here's one other figure. How many new apps do you guess does the average user install per month on his phone or her phone? Did you guess something? 1, 5, 10? It's 0. Absolutely 0. The average user doesn't install a new app. You install new apps if you have a new phone, but thereafter you rarely add new apps. These are the statistics. That makes it clear that the web has something big to offer. Its reach. Let's compare the reach. We have the top 1,000 native apps and web pages visited from mobile. In the native apps, we have 3.3 million users. In the web apps, we have 8.9. So even though less time goes towards the web, more people are visiting it. We can reach a broader audience there. The reason, of course, is connected to that figure of the 80% being spent in the same app. People do spend a lot of time in native apps, but always in the same apps. The average app doesn't get that many visitors. Now, the web has a huge advantage. You don't need to install anything from the App Store, which takes time and which you have to do actively. You search for something, Google shows the result, boom, you're on your web page. You take a bookmark and you're back. So this is how you use the web. It's so much easier to get onto these web pages, and that's a huge advantage of the web. Now, since we can get advantages of the native device, offline access, camera, and so on, to the web, combined with that figure, sounds like progressive web apps aren't that bad of an idea. Let's confirm this hypothesis by having a look at this comparison. We have native apps and traditional web apps. So no progressive web app, a traditional web app which doesn't offer access to any native device features. If we compare them by capability and reach, the native app, of course, has awesome capabilities. We can leverage the operating system and access a lot of native device features. On the other hand, the reach isn't that good for the reasons we heard about. A web app, on the other hand, a traditional one, doesn't really have access to all these device features. It probably doesn't run offline, so that's not too good, but the reach is really good. You can find it via Google, it's just one address in the URL bar away. A progressive web app now combines the best of both worlds. There, we can access a lot of the native device features, we can make it available offline, and we do have good reach, of course, because it's still a web app still running in the browser. This is, well, we will focus on progressive web apps in this course, and why learning them really is a good idea. You can get the best of both worlds and deliver awesome experiences to your users.